I came home 3 days early from a work trip, tired, carrying flowers for my wife. The second I opened the door, I heard her sobbing like her heart was breaking. And right there on my couch sat my daughters-in-laws, smiling. Not polite smiles. Big, satisfied smiles. Like they'd already won. That moment changed how I see family forever. INTRO, 0:30 to 1 o'clock. Hey friend, I'm Mike. Regular guy. 47 years old. Work construction management, pay my taxes, coach my kids' softball team. Never thought I'd be telling this story. But if you've got a spouse, kids, or in-laws, stick with me. What happened in my living room that afternoon could save your family a lot of pain. The mask slipped, I put the flowers down, and asked what the hell was going on. My wife could barely speak. Turns out my daughters-in-laws had shown up unannounced while I was gone. They'd spent 2 hours telling my wife that my daughter and her husband were struggling because we were too involved. They wanted us to step back. Way back. They smiled the whole time they said it. Told us it was for the best. But here's what they really meant. They wanted control. Control of my daughter. Control of holidays. Control of future grandkids. And control of the $35,000 we'd saved to help them with a down payment on a house. I looked at my wife's red eyes and something in me snapped. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was a power move. You ever notice how some people smile biggest right when they're sticking the knife in? That was them. Let me take you back to that exact afternoon so you feel it like I did. I walked into my own house after driving 6 hours straight because the job site wrapped up early and I wanted to surprise Sarah. The house smelled like coffee, but the air was thick. My wife Sarah was on the couch, tissues everywhere, eyes puffy. And across from her, Mr. and Mrs. Reynolds, my daughters-in-laws, sitting there like they owned the place. Big grins. The kind you see at a winning lottery ticket moment. I said, "Sarah, what happened?" She just shook her head. Mrs. Reynolds piped up first, all sweet and syrupy. "Oh Mike, we were just having a heart-to-heart about the kids. You know how it is. Heart-to-heart my ass." They had ambushed her. This wasn't the first time I'd seen little signs. For months there were these subtle digs. Comments like, "We just want what's best for Emily and Jake." But now the mask was off. They laid it out. We were overbearing parents who needed to let the young couple find their own way. Translation. Stop helping, stop advising, stop being in their lives so much. And definitely stop offering that down payment money we had set aside after years of overtime and skipped vacations. I stood there in my work boots, still dusty from the site, and felt this rage mixed with sadness. Here's my wife, who raised our daughter through late nights, school plays, doctor visits, and everything else, being reduced to tears in her own living room. By people who barely knew us. People who smiled while doing it. Think about your own life for a second. Have you ever walked into a situation where family was supposed to be support, but instead it felt like an attack? Maybe it was your mother-in-law questioning your parenting. Or your son-in-law's parents pushing their traditions over yours. It happens more than we admit. In average American homes just like mine in the suburbs of Ohio, where folks work hard, go to church sometimes, grill on weekends, and try to hold it together. I didn't yell. I just said, "This ends now." But inside I knew this was bigger than one afternoon. It was the start of a fight for my family's soul. Let me tell you more about my family so you see we're not special. We're normal. Sarah and I got married young, right after high school sweethearts turned real. Built a life on modest salaries. I went from laborer to manager. She worked admin at the school district. Our daughter Emily was our everything. We sacrificed date nights, new cars, fancy trips so she could have dance lessons, then softball, then college without crushing debt. When she married Jake 2 years ago, we were happy. The Reynolds family seemed okay at first. Big house, nice cars, always posting vacations on Facebook. But over time, the differences showed. They took Emily and Jake on trips we couldn't match. Then came the hints. "You know, Jake's parents are helping with this and that." Always comparing. Always positioning themselves as the generous ones. That day, when they smiled through the criticism, it hit me. This is how families quietly get torn apart. Not with screaming matches on reality TV, but with polite smiles and concern, in middle-class living rooms across America. In Ohio, in Texas, in California suburbs, same story. Parents who saved for years get pushed aside because the other side wants to rewrite the rules. I asked them direct. You think showing up unannounced and making my wife cry is for the best? Mr. Reynolds chuckled and said, We're all adults here, Mike. Adults. Adults don't gang up on a woman alone in her home. This is the pattern. Interrupt. Most in-law problems aren't small annoyances. They're quiet takeovers. And if you don't see the mask slip early, it's too late. The hidden game most families never see coming. Listen, most of us think in-law problems are just petty drama. Wrong. This is about territory. Every family has its own culture, values, and way of doing life. When your kid gets married, two cultures crash together. Sometimes they blend. Sometimes one tries to swallow the other whole. My daughter's in-laws came from a different world. Loud, flashy, always keeping score. We're quiet, steady, save first, ask questions later people. For 2 years we ignored the little comments. The jokes, about how we're cheap. The constant suggestions that my daughter deserved more. But that afternoon they stopped hiding it. They wanted us out of the picture so they could reshape my daughter into their image. I asked them straight. You drove 2 hours to make my wife cry. Why? The father-in-law just leaned back and said, We're just looking out for the kids. Bull. They were looking out for themselves. Let's break this down slow because this is where most families lose. I've talked to dozens of guys at work, at the ball field, at barbecues, regular dads like me. The stories are the same. One buddy's in-laws moved across the street after the wedding and started dropping by every day, criticizing how he mowed the lawn or what his wife cooked. Another had the opposite, total silence until they wanted something, like free babysitting or money for their emergencies. In my case, the Reynolds played the long game. First it was small, inviting Emily and Jake for Sunday dinners without us. Then holidays started tilting their way. Christmas Eve at our house became optional, because their family party was bigger and better. They'd say things like, We know you guys are more low-key. Low-key meaning boring in their eyes. Here's a surprising fact. Studies on family dynamics show that over 60% of married couples report tension with in-laws, and it's one of the top reasons for ongoing stress in marriages. But nobody talks about it openly at the PDA meeting or the company picnic. We smile and pretend. I remember one specific comment that should have been a red flag earlier. Mrs. Reynolds told Emily, right in front of Sarah, Honey, you married up in lifestyle, didn't you? Implying we were beneath them. Emily laughed it off as a joke. Sarah let it slide to keep peace. That's how it starts. You let one comment go, then another, then they're in your living room smiling while your wife cries. Think about average Americans, the truck driver whose wife's parents expect Sunday dinner every week. The teacher whose husband's mom constantly buys gifts to outdo her. The nurse saving for retirement but pressured to help adult kids because the other grandparents are helping more. It's everywhere. The hidden game is control disguised as love. They don't say, We want to take over. They say, We're concerned. They don't say, Your values are wrong. They say, We just want the kids to be happy. But happiness to them means doing it their way. I pushed back that day by asking questions. What exactly do you mean by too involved? We helped with their wedding. We watch the dog when they travel. We listen when they have money stress. Their answers were vague. Always vague when the real goal is power. This point matters because if you miss it, you wake up one day and your grandkids call the other grandparents Nana and Papa. Like they're the main ones, and you're the side characters. I've seen it happen to friends. Don't let it happen to you. Let me share more real examples from people I know so you can relate. Take my coworker Tom. His daughter married into a family that celebrated every holiday with huge expensive parties. Tom's family did quiet home dinners. After a year, Tom's daughter started skipping their traditions because it's easier at mom and dad's, meaning the in-laws. Tom felt erased. Sound familiar? Or my neighbor Lisa. Her son's wife's parents were very religious in a different denomination. They started pressuring the grandkids about church, undermining what Lisa taught at home. Lisa cried to me one day saying she felt like she lost her son. These aren't dramatic movie plots. These are Tuesday afternoons in ordinary neighborhoods where people mow lawns, pack school lunches, and worry about mortgage payments. Your family might be next if you don't spot the hidden game. The Reynolds wanted to rewrite our daughter's expectations. They pushed Jake's career ideas that involved risk and their connections, while we encouraged steady jobs and saving. They wanted flashy. We wanted secure. That clash was at the heart of it. What they were really after, here's the part that still makes my blood boil. They weren't just after emotional control. They had a plan for the money we saved. Their son, my son-in-law, had a business opportunity, one of those deals that sounded great after 3 beers but had 0 real numbers behind it. They wanted us to hand over the $35,000 as a family investment. When my wife said we needed to talk about it as a family, they turned on the pressure. Told her she was being selfish. That a real mother would support her daughter's future. My wife, the woman who worked nights so our daughter could play travel ball, was being called selfish. That's when I stepped in. I told them calmly, "This conversation is over. You can leave." They tried the guilt trip. "You're tearing the family apart." I looked the father-in-law dead in the eyes and said, "No. You came into my house and tried to break my wife. We're done pretending this is normal. Expand on this anger and the money angle. That $35,000 wasn't lottery money. It was years of me working Saturdays, Sarah skipping new clothes, us driving old cars. We ate leftovers to save it for our daughter's future. Not to fund some half-baked scheme. The business opportunity was Jake partnering with his dad on a franchise that had failed twice before in their circle. No business plan, just, "Trust us, it'll be huge." They framed it as us being unsupportive if we said no. Sarah told me later they spent an hour guilting her. "Emily deserves the life we can give her with your help." Implying our help wasn't enough unless it was cash on their terms. This is common. I've heard stories of in-laws pushing timeshares, MLMs, crypto, or, sure thing, real estate. Average families get sucked in because saying no makes you the bad guy. When I told them to leave, Mrs. Reynolds teared up, fake tears. "We only want unity." Unity on their terms. I stood firm. That's what you have to do sometimes. No fluff. Direct. Let's talk real numbers for average Americans. The median savings for a family like mine is around that $35,000 range for big helps. According to basic financial realities, most parents dip into that for weddings, down payments, or emergencies. But when in-laws see it as their piggy bank, trouble starts. One friend gave $20,000 and never saw it again. The couple divorced, and the in-laws blamed him. Another case, parents loaned money for a car, and the in-laws convinced the kids it was a gift, causing fights. In my story, protecting that money protected our daughter long-term. 6 months later we learned the scheme would have lost it all. The guilt trip is their favorite weapon. Real family helps. But real family respects boundaries. The hard truth about family boundaries: most people are scared to do what I did. They're terrified of being called difficult, controlling, bad parents. But here's the truth: love without boundaries is just slow-motion destruction. I sat my daughter down the next day, alone, no in-laws, no husband. I told her the full story. Showed her the text messages her mother-in-law had sent my wife behind her back. She cried. Not because she was mad at me, because she finally saw the pattern. The little criticisms that added up. The way her in-laws always positioned themselves as the fun grandparents while painting us as the obstacle. She wasn't a bad daughter. She was stuck in the middle and didn't know how to get out. Expanding further, boundaries aren't walls. They're fences with gates. You decide who comes through. I explained to Emily that marriage means new family, but it doesn't erase the old one. She needed to stand up too. We had many long talks over weeks. Coffee at the kitchen table, walks in the park, honest conversations that hurt but healed. How we fixed it, and how you can too. We didn't cut anyone off. But we changed the rules. All big money decisions go through a family meeting, no exceptions. Holidays are shared, not owned by one side. If someone disrespects my wife in my house again, they're not welcome back. Period. My daughter and son-in-law actually thanked us 6 months later. Turns out the business opportunity was a pyramid scheme in a cheap suit. The in-laws still smile. But now they know the limits. And my wife doesn't cry anymore. The biggest lesson: your job as a parent doesn't end when your kid gets married. It changes. You go from protector to guardian of the family culture. Someone has to hold the line. Might as well be you. Expanded Solutions with step-by-step how-tos. First, have the calm conversation. Write down your non-negotiables. For us, respect, shared decisions on money, equal holiday time. Second, communicate as a united front with your spouse. Sarah and I backed each other 100%. Third, involve your child directly but privately. Show evidence without attacking. Fourth, follow through. We skipped one family event when they pushed, and it sent the message. Fifth, keep building your own family traditions. We started monthly dinners, just us, Emily, and Jake. Strengthen the core. This works for truck drivers, office workers, teachers, nurses, anyone. Real people with real bills. Add dozens of hypothetical scenarios. What if your in-laws criticize your cooking every visit? Set the rule: positive talk or leave. What if they undermine your parenting? Private talk with your child. What if money pressure? Clear no and reasons. The insight is this: families survive when boundaries are clear and love is the foundation. Weak boundaries lead to resentment. Strong ones lead to respect.